Hello, EMA course 3350-70. This is Caitlin Patterson. This is my presentation over my directed research this semester. I titled it Real Individual Preparations and Opinion on Responsibility Regarding Emergency Preparedness Stockpiles at Individual and Local Levels. What I'm really talking about is I just wanted to see how many people actually have emergency preparedness kits and to be able to get through a disaster or an emergency properly, and whether they felt like society should provide those for the elderly. As in my line of work, I come across the elderly that are unprepared for everyday life, much less an actual emergency. So I just wanted to see how people felt about that topic as well. So I'm going to start out with demographics. Anybody that hung out in an AOL chat room in the 90s is going to recognize the first three: age, sex, location, right? And then income, pretty basic. I was able to break down the demographics of the people who responded to my survey. I had 144 people all across the United States answer. As you can see, most of the respondents are under 60. Predominantly they were female, but a little over a third were males. And you can see here, location is going to figure into some of this too. Clearly, most of the people that responded were in the eastern half of the United States. The pretty heavy concentration along the coast here, and a fair amount right in there. Definitely the least amount of people responded were in the extreme northeast and in the Midwest. Also broke it down by the income. So for purposes of this study, I counted anybody that made $49,999 and below as being in low income and poverty levels. The 50,000 to basically 150,000 I referred to as middle class, and then anybody 150 to 200,000 plus, technically that's upper middle class, but so I didn't get repetitive with the middle class part. I just referred to them as wealthy. They are the wealthiest in the study, so that counts, I think. And then just about 10% preferred not to answer what their income level was. So the first section of my questions dealt with actual, real preparatory steps that people took. Like, what do you actually have on hand? What have you actually bought? Not what do you think you could get from Walmart real fast once the tornadoes or hurricane or whatever, what have you, is headed your way. So do people actually buy the things? And it turns out most people buy a first aid kit. An equal amount, exactly equal amount, have both the first aid kit and the emergency radio as the people that have neither. The people that have an emergency radio only, I find that really kind of odd and interesting. I don't know how you'd go out of your way to have an emergency radio, but not a first aid kit. Also, I should have clarified when I was asking the questions about the type of radio. I don't mean I've got a portable radio that I can plug in or runs on batteries. I mean an actual handheld, kind of like a ham radio that can make and receive transmissions and stuff like that, so that you can actually communicate with people. And that I also should have specified that phones don't count. Turns out some people think that a phone is an acceptable alternative to a radio, but if cell towers go down, it's no good. Another question was, do you have enough canned food, rations, and water? Most people replied yes, that they do. A very large percentage actually said that they do. However, when you combine this with the answers to question 5 that we'll get to shortly, it really kind of calls into question what kind of food and is it actually the appropriate amounts. I feel like a lot of people are guesstimating on this, and I was only able to ask 10 questions in this survey, so I wasn't able to be more specific. Another question was, do they have a backup generator with fuel, light sources, and batteries? There's quite a bit of people that said yes. I was kind of surprised how many people have generators. And the interesting part about this is kind of where location comes in. 55.5% of people that had a generator and other light sources with fuel and batteries, they all lived on the eastern seaboard. And when you add in that southern eastern part where a lot of the hurricanes and stuff come in too, that goes up to 62%. So I just kind of think it would be nice to dive deeper into, do their preparatory levels and stuff have anything to do with the weather patterns, or is it maybe vulnerabilities in their electric systems? Anyhow, and the next question was, this is the question 5 that I was talking about, in connection with the canned food. Is it all stored together as an assembled kit? And you can clearly see right there that almost 70% of people do not have it all stored together, which means they're kind of guessing that they have enough food just based on the number of cans that they have in there. So there's no guarantee that they have actual edible, like, meal food rations. It's very likely these people are going to end up with cream of mushroom soup and lima beans and fruit cocktail for meals, because they're just using whatever they have on hand and counting that as being prepared. Also, another question was, is the kit usable? Do they replace the items in the kit as they expire? Fortunately, about 60% of people said yes, but that leaves 40% of people that don't replace the items in their kit. As you can see, if you don't replace the items, your kit is compromised and it really limits the usefulness. You end up with expired batteries or expired food. It's not going to do you any good. Another question I was wondering about is it too costly? Is that a reason people might not be prepared? And over 60% of people think that the complete kit is too expensive. And I really thought that most of the people that replied, yes, it's too expensive, were going to be the ones that were like, yeah, I'm not prepared. This is why it costs too much. However, I was pretty surprised because it's actually 50% from every single income bracket thinks it's too expensive. And matter of fact, that's except for those in the very deepest poverty that make $10,000 or less. Only 41% of them think it's too expensive. So I don't know if that's because maybe more of them don't have kits, and so they don't understand the whole cost involved. But overall, most people, whether they have a kit or not, think it's too expensive. And is it too bulky? Does it take up too much space to store it? People were split completely evenly. I kind of assumed that it would be more people would say yes, because generators are not really small, and keeping the whole kit all together and stored, I felt would take a fair amount of space. And in fact, 52% of those who say that they are prepared agree that it does take up too much space. So, some more questions I asked pertain to the social responsibility. Do people think we should provide for the elderly? And then, like, really, would you do it? Kind of question, right? Theoretical versus practical support. So I asked whether the city should provide emergency kits for the elderly or like terminally sick citizens, right? And overwhelmingly, people responded yes. Yes, the city should supply those. In fact, all of the no answers only came from 2 different income brackets, as a matter of fact. So just about 30% were those that make less than $50,000, And all the rest that responded no come from the middle class. Like, it was a pretty big split that the no responses came from only those two brackets. And actually, as far as male and female too, that was pretty evenly split. 82% of women and 80% of men thought that the city should provide the emergency kits. And then I go from should the city, kind of like theoretically, should this be provided for? I went to would you support taxes, like you specifically? And as you can see, the support dropped from 81 to about 69%, right? And you would have I thought it was just going to be some of those yes people dropped down to the no, right? As it turns out, 33% of the people that responded that the city should not provide kits for the elderly, 33% of those would support taxes. So there was actually a flip-flop between people switching sides between yes and no. It wasn't only an attrition from yes to no. So I thought that was kind of interesting, somewhat inexplicable, to be honest. So this is when having a mixed methodology would have helped, because I would have very much liked to have asked these people why, if they don't think they should be provided, why would they support taxes for it? And so I actually asked this question at the very beginning. Do you feel prepared for the emergency, right? Before I walked them through, well, do you have this or this or this? I just wanted to gauge what their initial confidence levels were. And so there you have it. Only less than 16% were actually prepared according to the parameters of the study, but 62% of people thought they were prepared. And frankly, I was kind of expecting more men to have overestimated their preparation, so I guess I might have my own little bit of bias there, but women were the ones that really overestimated whether or not they were ready. So that is that. Thank you for listening to my presentation.